Could the IEO be the next big catalyst to help drive the bulls out of hiding and bring the next wave of capital investment into the crypto economy? Well, I'm going to be breaking down what an IEO is, who's doing it, and why it's important for the crypto economy. An IEO is an initial exchange offering, basically an ICO, but listed on a cryptocurrency exchange for their initial offer. Now, 2017 was largely a result of the ICO boom. That is to say, of course, the 2017 bull run. ICOs were super hot. They were providing massive returns to investors and money was splashing around everywhere. And when the ICO boom died down, so did the market. Part of the problem with ICOs was, of course, the lack of transparency, the lack of actually delivering products, lack of security in investing directly via these crowdfunding websites, the gas wars, lack of demand for the tokens with no user bases, etc., etc., etc. Now, the idea of the IEO is not actually a new thing, but it's been taking off, particularly in the last couple of weeks, in a very big way. Now, a quick look at who is doing the IEOs right now. Binance, of course, depending on the day, is the #1 exchange in the world based on volume. They've recently had BitTorrent. They've recently had Fetch.ai. Both of those had big returns for investors. Now we are moving on to Seller Network, and I'd be very surprised if there was not a significant return on investment for anyone who manages to get into that seller sale. We have seen Binance have overwhelming demand for these IEOs, and of course, limited availability to get in. OKX, the world's 5th biggest exchange, just confirmed that their IEO platform is coming very soon. They don't have any word, though, on who is going to be listed there. But I would expect that, particularly with OKX being so big, the impact of their IEO market will be significant indeed. Then, of course, we have BitMax. Now, BitMax is the 50th biggest exchange by volume. Sometimes it pumps up quite a bit more, depending on whether we're looking at reported volume, which can really make BitMax look a lot bigger than it probably is at the moment versus the adjusted volume. But that's perhaps a different story. Now, they are also, of course, going to be having IEOs. In fact, they've already had their first one called DOS Network. They have another one called Aluva coming very soon. We can look at KuCoin. They have announced. We are still awaiting details on who is going to be their first IEO, but it is coming to KuCoin. Now, KuCoin is the 70th biggest exchange, so it's far from being the biggest and most popular cryptocurrency exchange, but nevertheless, the more players bringing good IEOs to the market, the better. Huobi Prime, the world's 13th biggest exchange, yes, they're going to be doing IEOs as well. Again, we don't really have many details from them, but it appears that this is indeed what they're doing. Liquid.com, though, they have been doing this for a long time. They're the 76th biggest exchange by volume, but they've kind of lacked the liquidity of, obviously, Binance or someone like OKX. So the initial exchange offerings that we've seen there haven't had the same kind of stellar, massive gain results that we've seen over on Binance. Now, of course, the hope with the IEO is that these companies are going to be going out and doing their due diligence in a very serious and professional way. But sadly, that is not always going to be the way. I give you this example. Bittrex is also launching an IEO platform. They are the 49th biggest exchange by volume. Now, their first IEO project was supposed to be, in the past tense, a project called Raid. Now, it was scheduled to go live, but has been canceled. Why did they cancel it? Apparently, Bittrex, for their first IEO, did very little due diligence. The partnerships were not confirmed, and the alleged partners have now come out saying that there is no partnership. That is a bad look for Bittrex. Of course, it would have been a much worse look for Bittrex had they gone through with the sale. Thankfully, they caught this in time and were able to cancel the sale. But still, Even if it could have been worse, I think it shows you that you cannot always trust the exchanges to go out and do the kind of due diligence that you would expect them to do. Just because it's listed on an exchange, it is no substitute for doing your own research on that project. And I feel it's probably not going to get done on a lot of projects simply because it's listed on Binance. People are going to go out and buy it regardless of what that project actually is, hoping, of course, to flip it for a profit later. You still have to DYOR, guys, because these things will happen. Now, you should usually be okay because, of course, the exchanges are putting their reputations on the line. That's why Bittrex had to cancel this sale, and I'm sure that somebody's probably getting fired over this happening. Somebody was supposed to do that due diligence. Nobody called the partners. Nobody looked on social media to confirm their partnerships. These are very basic things that, as an investor, you need to do. To see an exchange and not doing that, I want to say I'm shocked, but realistically, profit is still king and shortcuts are going to get made. The rumors are that the next Bittrex IEO will be a project called Veriblock. I think very quickly we're going to see a situation where offering IEOs is going to become an industry standard for exchanges. There is a gigantic honeypot out there waiting to be dipped and tasted. And every exchange is going to get on board with doing this, trying to court the best projects to come to them. The monetary potential of this is very big for any exchanges that are getting it right. Binance has already proved that. And of course, sad news for Americans, you will likely be excluded from all of this happening. Reminder that Uncle Sam doesn't want you to get rich. Getting rich is only for sophisticated investors. Just because an ICO is launching on an exchange, of course, does not mean that that is going to be a good project, nor does it actually mean that you're going to get a profit out of that in the long run. But initially, the initial mania, I think, is very likely to return big profits to the investors who can get into those sales. A really important factor here is that due to the hype alone, it's not even going to matter half the time what these ICOs are. They're just going to pump because of the demand, the unmet demand that happens due to listing them on these exchanges. I don't think that will last, though, as we see more and more exchanges offering these IEOs. That crazy hype from unmet demand will die down a little bit, but there's still going to be hype, especially for the big projects. And much like ICO mania, investors will still need to see real growth, real delivery of technology, real building of communities, and platforms that have a good monetary model. And if the new breed of ICOs can deliver this real value, then long term we can see great sustainability for the crypto economy. But just in terms of that buy it, flip it, that's going to happen too. That mania, though, that's not necessarily sustainable in a long-term trend. What we do need to see in terms of sustainability for the crypto economy, real technology, real users, real platforms. That is a very important thing for the IEO to not just be a flash in the pan in terms of people making a lot of money and people losing a lot of money. Some are even saying this is just a new way for exchanges to do pumps and dumps. I don't see it that way, but there will be a lot of hype and mania around it. People will buy into the hype, people will get burned. You can't protect people from making bad investment decisions. It's just the way the markets work. Also worth keeping in mind that these are still just startup businesses, of course, and there will be big failure rates in the long term as they fail to deliver technology, can't get users, etc., etc. These are startups. It's really worth keeping that in mind. Now, aside from everyone just getting silly rich, there are actually some very important bonuses to the IEO model. And it's not a new model. There's been some exchanges that have been doing this for a while, and I've always thought it was a really, really great idea to do an IEO, to see the bigger exchanges picking up on that now, and of course to see Binance coming back to it. Because remember, Binance was doing this a very long time ago. They had Tron as an IEO, and then the whole China thing happened, and they delayed and just didn't do it for a long time, and now they're back. But the IEO has a lot of important things that it can add, not only to the ICOs, but to investors and to exchanges themselves. Theoretically, of course, for the investor, some kind of due diligence happens in the background. Now, Bittrex seems to have shown us that it's not always the case, but I think most of the times this is going to be the case because reputation is so important for these cryptocurrency exchanges. And if they get the reputation for listing scam ICOs, well, they're not going to get the business, are they? And the exchange that can say, yes, we actually have teams here doing the due diligence, we're listing projects that are legitimate. That's important. It will drastically reduce the amount of scam ICOs because the scams won't get through the due diligence process. It's not going to necessarily eliminate them because scammers are scammers, and scammers can get really good at their scamming and present really great pictures for scamming. It's still going to happen from time to time. But the high percentage of scams was a real problem in the last ICO boom. If we can drastically reduce that number, that's a positive. Holding your offering on an exchange will likely become a necessary standard for any ICO. So any ICO that doesn't do an IEO, investors will ask, hey, wait a second, why aren't you doing this via an exchange platform like everyone else? That will immediately put you on the back foot and put you at a disadvantage as a project trying to raise funds. The next key thing here is liquidity. Any IEO launched on an exchange will trade on that exchange. This is super important. No more are we going to have to sit around waiting for 6 months or a year for an exchange listing. You will know if that token is listed for an IEO on Binance or OKX or whatever, it's going to be trading on that exchange. This is amazingly important because liquidity has been a massive problem for a lot of ICO projects. Now, it's also going to help avoid the scams. I'm not just talking about the scam ICOs. That's a whole different topic. I'm talking about the process of the ICO overall. How many times have Telegram groups been hacked or Telegram groups get flooded with scammers pretending to be admins, mirror websites come up, email lists get hacked, etc., etc., etc. This has plagued legitimate ICOs, and some very legitimate ICOs have had all of these problems and then lost community support because they couldn't provide adequate security during the crowd sale. And these crowd sales have been big honeypots for the hackers and the scammers. The exchanges have much higher levels of security versus the ICO projects themselves, so that will be a net positive for the ICOs and for the investors, and I guess a net loss for the scammers, but no one's going to sit around and cry for those guys, are they? Also, increased security of your private documents. Just think of all the times that we have shared our passport and all this other information that you have to share for KYC in order to get into these different ICOs. Where's that data now? What have they done with it? At least with an IEO, the exchange handles the KYC. You do KYC one time on the exchange, and then you can invest in as many ICOs on that exchange as you want. You don't have to share your information around with sketchy ICOs or whatever it might be. You don't have to trust on these third-party providers that who is the ICO using to do the KYC, because it's not them. They hire third-party services. Who is a third-party service? You don't have to worry about any of this anymore. It'll all be handled by the exchanges. So that is a net positive, I think, for the retail investor. It also avoids the gas wars. Now, the Ethereum gas wars, famous. Ever try sending a transaction at the time that an ICO is going on? Well, you just have to wait 30 minutes or an hour for that to finish. Because it was insane. People be paying thousands of dollars trying to get their transaction through first. The network gets all clogged up, and look, at some point Ethereum will scale, and that won't be so much of a problem, but it's a problem right now. But that doesn't, of course, eliminate demand. We can see Binance, for example, all of their IEOs up to this point have had insane demand. A massive amount of people want to get, and only a few % of those people actually are able to invest. Overall, the IEO model reduces risk for all parties involved in the investment process. The ICOs, it's cheaper for them. The exchange, it's better for them. The retail investor, it's better for them. Everybody reduces risk and everybody wins here. And That's also an important thing to point out, actually, that for the ICOs, it's going to be lower cost for them to do this. Now, it's not something so relevant for us retail investors, but actually running an ICO costs a lot of money. From advertising to security, and on down it goes. This will drastically reduce costs for any token that wants to have a sale. So that's important for them, not so much for us retail investors, but nevertheless, that is a net positive of the IEO. And overall, I think that IEOs will be very positive for the crypto space, not just from a profit angle either, but from a security and from a trust angle. And those are two things that have been so sorely lacking in the ICO market. Now, if this is actually marking the beginning of a new ICO season, then we may be in for a wild ride in the coming months. If the hype sustains, then of course it will create life-changing money for many people. These could be the first sprouts of a thaw in the crypto winter and of the coming crypto spring. There have been so many different iterations of the concept of blockchain-based fundraising, but regardless of how it's played out, the idea of fundraising via the blockchain remains one of blockchain's killer apps. And to see the evolution of the ICO is an overall net positive. It really is, because that fundraising mechanism, it's amazing. We've had amazing projects delivered via these fundraising mechanisms. And yes, we've had a lot of bad projects delivered, but that's the startup space. Bad projects happen, they fail, they go away. Good projects happen, they thrive, and they return money for investors. This is an evolution. I think it's a positive evolution for the ICO industry. One thing that I think is very much worth taking note of, though, as well, are exchange tokens. Look at what happened to the BNB token recently due to the IEO boom. And that's just from a couple of IEOs that are listed over on Binance. Keep an eye on coins like BitMax and the Huobi token. They could really take off with their IEO platforms launching. Just a thought. It's kind of that picks and shovels during the gold rush sort of thing, because those exchange tokens are kind of the digital equivalent of the picks and shovels here. And of course, this is just one of the many pieces that are coming together to help create opportunities in the crypto markets. You can add all this into Fidelity Impact and better blockchains in the gaming industry and STOs and all that fun stuff. But I think the IEO could be a very fun, exciting, and profitable innovation that we're seeing right now in the crypto industry. But of course, those are just my 2 Satoshis, guys. You will let me know what you think about the IEO boom down below in the comment section. As always, thank you so much for taking the time out of your day to come over here and watch this video. If you enjoyed it, leave a thumbs up on it. Quick reminder, you guys are super awesome. Seriously, you all rock, and I love you all. And if you're new around here, subscribe to the channel. You can hit that notification bell to stay up to date when I put out a new video. Long live the blockchain, and peace out till next time.